this in corporate plays. We'll groove through it all in funky ways. So join us now, let's find our way. Listen to bits and pivots every single day. Ooh, get money, get paid.
So if you've been watching, like obviously I'm recording all these intros and outros all at once. I just want to batch everything. I don't, in season 1 of this podcast, I was doing it like the way you would think, where you interview someone on like a Monday, you edit it on a Tuesday, you publish it on a Wednesday, and it's just too hard to keep up with. So what I'm doing here for season 2 is I'm recording like just banger episodes with fucking banger people. Like I got so many awesome people coming on this thing. People where it was like when they replied, I was like, really? You will? Unbelievable. And I'm just like batching everything. So I'm doing all the editing on consecutive days. I'm doing graphics on consecutive days and the intros and outros. So if you're like, wow, Chris really likes that shirt, or, you know, like, and so what I'm doing is I'm moving around my house trying to get different backgrounds. I'll be in front of the Christmas tree at the end of the episode, but if you've been on LinkedIn for like a minute and you're following like SDR type people in SaaS sales, then you know Caroline Maloney. She's a heavy poster. She has a big following. She's great if you're like early in your career as a BDR. She has great content that speaks specifically for you. So if you're, an early career sales rep or BDR, like follow her. She has good stuff to share. So I wanted to talk to her because her career, she went from BDR to like BDR manager. Then she went into enablement. And that's what I was most curious about. Like, how do you go from sales to enablement? Like, what are some of the things you got to look out for? What are some of the things you could do now to prepare for that if you're curious about it? Good, bad, and ugly, this, that, and the other thing. And then also, coincidentally, like she got a new job. So she's going back into sales leadership. So like she's someone who, she's like me, like she gets curious and excited about stuff. And then she's like, fuck it, I'll go and, do it on my own and discover it. So she's had like an awesome career, I think. Like she's given herself full permission to explore her curiosities and passions. I think it's awesome. Like if you have the privilege to do so, you should do so as well. And recording podcast stuff. It's okay. All right. I got to go help with the groceries, but enjoy the episode with Caroline Maloney. This is part 1 of 2. Connect with her on LinkedIn, Caroline Maloney, and she also does some consulting too. I'll talk to you after the episode. Enjoy. Let me show it to you. It's this guy. He does. Yeah, it's really crazy. So he's a super hipster guy, and he's actually Italian, but he dresses like in all Western stuff. Like he's very Westerny, and he used to play in a death metal band. So it's like he's got a lot going on. Yeah, he's like this Italian American cowboy that used to play heavy metal.
That's funny. It's giving Yellowstone vibes.
Cool. I got that. And then my son's art I like to display. This is LeBron James. He's dunking. You can see his goatee here.
Of course.
Like there's a basketball hoop. And of course there's the sun, because every drawing has the sun in the corner. These are ice creams. He called them ice creams. I'm like, what is it? He goes, it's ice creams. And they have like sharp teeth and they look kind of maniacal, which is great.
Mean, that's like really creative, honestly.
Yeah, that one I like. This one is bullshit. So this is his best one. This is from like when he was like maybe 4 in Montessori school. And I'm like, did you copy that? Did you trace it? And he's like, no, not at all. And he sucks artistically, and like his handwriting's really bad. So I'm like, you cheated on that one, but it looks great, so I keep it.
That's so funny. Well, they're beautiful, all very beautiful, avant-garde.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I love my office. Like I love having my own room that I can do whatever I want to in. So it's like when you were a kid and you would get really jazzed about putting different posters up and moving your furniture around.
Oh, sure. Taylor Lautner was all over my room, like multiple different poses.
Oh, that's hilarious. Is that still a thing for you a little bit, or is that
My boyfriend wouldn't like hearing that, so I'll say it quietly because he's in the other room. But yeah, no, Taylor Lautner. I mean, come on, he's a heartthrob. I love him.
well, okay, so to get around it, you just tell him like, "Oh, well, I mean, he looks a lot like you. Like he
That's,
reminds me of you." That's the thing.
that's what I said last night when we were watching Yellowstone, and Rip came on, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, what a heartthrob!" And my boyfriend was like, "Hey, what the heck?" And I was like, "No, no, no, babe, he looks like you.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
they look, but they do look similar. So that's that's what you got to say."
That's what my wife did. Like her original hall pass was Ryan Reynolds. And I was like every time I'd see him, I'd get a little mad and be like, "Oh, you're excited. He's on the screen now, huh?" And
Yeah.
she's like, "No, he reminds me of you." But now it's Pedro Pascal, and I'm like, "What the
Oh
fuck
yeah.
is that?"
Oh,
And
for sure.
she's like, "He's a personality hire, basically." And so I'm like, "All right, whatever."
Well, if it
And
makes you
then
feel better, you do slightly bear resemblance to Ryan Reynolds. So,
like if he had like a really shitty older brother that was just kind of like always in trouble, maybe. Oh, fun. This is cool. Well, I like to start all these with gratitude first and foremost. Like I know everyone's busy and I really appreciate like we've never met before and I just reached out to you out of the blue. So booking this and coming on, I really do appreciate it.
sure, absolutely. I listened to some other episodes. I think you do a really great job, and I'm super excited. It coincides nicely with kind of a big career change for me, so I felt like it
Yeah.
was perfect timing.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk to you. It's solely focused on career issues, so it's not like a tactical sales
Right.
podcast. And I think it's really needed because a lot of times people fall into sales and they don't really have a plan. They're just like, "I'm 22, I want to make money, I'm going to do this," and then before you know it, they're 34, their hairline's receding, and they're like, "What am I doing? I don't even like this. Why am I in here?" So people need to plan, right? And not
Yeah.
everyone does it. So your career is really interesting. It's kind of like mine in that you got into sales like later on, you were on another path and then you pivoted into sales. And then from BDR, you actually went into sales enablement. Now you're going from sales enablement into sales leadership. So it's like the reason why I'm kind of fascinated with that, not so much the beginning part, like getting into sales, like I get that, but the part from like going from kind of getting not out of sales, but getting out of a selling role. Like I think that's really attractive to a lot of people in sales and they don't know how to
Mhm.
do it. And I think enablement is such a natural progression for some reps that are just kind of natural helpers and they like tools and process and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
then also what you're going through now is really interesting. It's something I've attempted and I haven't been able to pull off, but going into sales management,
Mm.
coming from outside of an organization
Mhm.
where you're doing something else, you want to get into sales management and you're interviewing at an outside organization. That's just very challenging because you're an untested entity. So we'll touch on all that stuff. I know I threw a lot at you, but like
Well,
how long were you a BDR for? Let's start there.
absolutely. It's funny. I was going to suggest we start there because I think this is where I have the most of my quote unquote expertise. And for those who are listening, not watching, I just threw out the biggest air quotes because I am very much always learning. I don't think I'm an expert in anything really, but I was a BDR for just about 2 years, and it's where I started my career. I was fortunate enough to have landed a fantastic BDR gig living in New York City when I was, as you say, 22. Uh, and my story is very much the same as a lot of folks' story, who broke into the BDR space from another industry. I wanted to make money. I wanted stability in a career that I could find fulfilling. But it's still my career. I still have my hobbies, I still have passions. But what I've
Yeah.
found that's really nice is over time, I am passionate about my career. It didn't start out that way, right? It was a job like any other job.
Yeah.
I had worked as a nanny, I had worked in a pet store, I had worked, doing this, that, and the other thing. But I could tell, like, right when I started this job, that it had the potential because there is so much reward being a seller, not just monetary reward, but
Yeah.
you get praise from your teammates, you get praise from leadership in just such different ways than I think other industries handle recognition and praise. And for someone like me who, like I really like hearing that I'm doing a good job, I really like that validation. Right off the bat, that was really meaningful to me. But here's what I would say to anyone who is just starting out kind of in that same position. Maybe they're looking to break into the space as a BDR and SDR. Maybe they have been in their BDR, SDR role for 6 months and they're kind of like, all right, clock's ticking. This is kind of a bit of a hot take. And Chris, maybe you'll disagree with me and that'll be interesting. My advice is to not focus on anything else, but getting really good at your job for the first 1 or 2 years. Like, a lot of people want to escape SDR land as quickly as they can and go become a seller, go become a sales leader, go become a marketer. That's great. You should have ambition. But the mistakes that I have made in my career, I will try to relay on this call. Focus on getting really good at your job and don't let your focus like waver.
No, totally. It's like I come from the trades, and so like my attitude is kind of the same. It's a trade, it's a craft, it's a learned skill, and just get awesome at it so that one, you're going to be great at it, but two, it becomes easier, right? So it's like if you get really proficient with, running discovery calls and you put together like a really crisp demo and you have like a great negotiation framework, like you get to a point where you're not having to like think and strain and, so much at work. And it's just like, it's muscle memory. So totally agree. And I think, balance is always going to be a challenge. So as you get later in your career, like hopefully you front loaded the investment so that you can kind of relax a little bit, which I think is what you're talking about. But yeah, there are times where you have to sprint, where you have to like just be balls to the wall and fucking like, just I'm all into this. But also I would say like, follow your passions too. So a lot of people early in their careers, they get in there, they get those wins, they get that validation. We're people pleasers, we're competitive. So it's like, it tickles that Jimmy. And so you kind of dive in, you're like, I want to double down into this. You get passionate about it. You follow those passions. So I think, the first couple of years, that's good. Every time you level up. So when you go from BDR to AE to manager, like I think the same thing, like kind of dive in, let yourself be passionate about it. But I think also like, listen to yourself, be curious about what's going on with yourself so that when you do start to get like a little bit aggravated, the anxiety's coming up, it's like, okay, now I'm going to step back. I'm going to make this more about a job. I'm going to like take care of myself a little bit more. So
yeah, 100%. Absolutely. And I think like my friend Zoe, says this best, but you should have a mentor outside of your company that helps like gut check you and that helps direct you. And I think that the importance of that is that person's outside of your organization. They're not going to have implicit bias. They're going to be able to kind of tell you, hey, like, here's what I'm seeing not being in your organization. I have no like dog in this fight. So as you grow, I think it's really important to establish mentorship with one or more people outside of your organization.
Yeah, no, that's funny. That's I'm jamming through a bunch of these recordings. I'm doing a bunch at once, and that's come up like maybe 2 or 3 times now, just naturally too, not me bringing it up, just like, yeah, I got a mentor, I got a coach or whatever. So very interesting. So when you got into BDR work, like, were you immediately thinking like, oh, I can leverage this into a role in operations, enablement, leadership, or were you just like, this is great, it feels good, I'm making some money, and I'm just going to see where it goes?
So, I mean, that's how I felt for the first like 6 months, right? Because I was also trying to pursue professional acting at the same time. So I was doing off-Broadway shows in New York. And that was where most of my focus was. It was funny. It was really cute. All my coworkers would come see me in my plays and like, they were so supportive. And I don't think any of them understood what I was doing or why I wanted to do it, but like, they were very lovely. So for the first like 6 months, the job was the job. It was a means to an income. I was living with roommates at the time. I had a shoebox in New York City, the whole 9 yards. So I was really just trying to kind of get by. I think when COVID happened, that was a natural turning point for all of us, right?
This is Noah. Noah sells software. He's not LinkedIn famous or anything, but he's a solid sales rep. And like a lot of us, he's faced some serious bad luck over the past few years. First, there was a layoff due to COVID. Then came a rift due to economic headwinds. And just when he thought he'd found the right fit, the company he was at got acquired and he was let go shortly thereafter. Noah's resume looks bad, like really, really bad, and he worries that his luck is never going to change. He fears this pattern of bad luck is going to continue, and he's going to be constantly looking for the right job. His confidence is at an all-time low. In his weakest moments, he wonders if maybe sales just isn't for him. It's not just about finding the next role, it's about finding stability and overcoming the perception that he's a job hopper and unreliable. Noah discovers a course called Elevate Your Sales Career, designing a 5-year plan for success. It promises to arm him with insights, knowledge, and frameworks to determine exactly what he needs to do to change his luck and turn his career around. After taking the course, Noah steps back into the job market with confidence and a reliable plan for a stable, successful future in sales.
But I think a couple months before COVID was when I really locked in and solidified that I wanted to continue doing this and eventually didn't want to be a BDR. I wanted to move on into enablement or leadership. But then COVID was kind of the cherry on top of like, hey, by the way, you can't act anymore because the whole world is shut down and you need to go, socially distance. So fortunately and unfortunately, I say, because obviously I don't think COVID was a positive thing at all. But for me, I think it did sort of help nudge me along the right path.
Yeah.
That being said, I found that my favorite thing to do, once I had started hitting my quota consistently and getting, really, I think, good at my job, I loved onboarding new reps. I loved being the person that they would shadow. I don't know, like, it just brought me so much joy. Like, I was obsessed with it. And I loved watching them win. Like, I loved watching new reps book their first meeting because it would remind me of when I booked my first meeting. And I will say I had the best boss. Like, I credit this all to Gab. She was phenomenal. And so I wanted to be just like her. Like, I just wanted to and I still do. But so I kind of knew relatively early on, I would say, that I wanted to be a leader. Now, I will say, I think the mistake that I made was jumping into sales leadership before I was ready.
Interesting. So you were the rep where it was like, probably super chipper, upbeat, process driven, and having success. And so they would hire someone new and they would be like, hey, just sit with Caroline for a couple hours and just do what she's doing. Like, we don't know what it is, but just do that. I got to be that rep a couple times in my career. It's pretty fun. So you jumped into sales leadership before you were ready. So let me see. You were kind of thinking about it. Maybe you weren't. They had the opportunity and they presented it to you. And you pushed for it.
Different company. So totally different company reached out to me because at that point I had started posting on LinkedIn. I had started to, gain a bit of a following and have various folks reaching out to me about new opportunities. So someone had reached out to me about a sales development team lead opportunity. So it was a player coach opportunity, which are very interesting. And I took it because at the time I had been at my first company for a little under 2 years and I hadn't gotten any monetary raise, even though I had been promoted.
That.
That's not really a promotion.
Who are you trying to kid? Like, what is this? Yeah, come on.
So I was a little disenchanted, honestly. I still loved all of the folks that I worked with, but I kind of felt like if there's no room for me to grow in this way, I can't really stay here long term. So, I went to this new company and I think that was a bit of a misstep. And the reason I think that is I was really eager and excited to be in sales leadership, but taking a player coach opportunity at a different company for your first time ever as a sales leader is a lot. Not only do you have to learn this new company and how to sell it and how to be an SDR, you have to build and onboard an entire team of your own and manage them. And it's like, I was constantly feeling lost in the sauce. I think I was not ready for that. And I don't think I think I did a really great job in some regards. And then in other regards, I was like, why did they hire me? Why am I here? But I think the other thing too is you got to make sure when you're jumping to sales leadership in a new company, got to make sure that they're going to really like have experts to help onboard you, or, you know, folks who are going to be in your corner to mentor you internally too, because I think that's just as important as external mentorship.
Mhm.
So I think I would have told myself to do things a little differently if I could look back on it. But then again, it's led me to where I am now. So I don't think, you know,
Yeah, it all works out. That's
yeah.
the attitude. I started my career in sales as a player coach in
Mhm.
a boiler room, and it was crazy. It was nuts. I did that for almost 3 years, and it
Yeah.
burned me out. Yeah, it was a
Wild.
lot. Um, that is tough work. So, one of the green flags I heard you mention, if you're looking at a leadership opportunity, is like, are they going to support you? Are they used to maybe like training up first time managers and like
Yeah.
teaching you how to do this? That's a lot of my 9 to 5 work is around manager enablement now. And it's such a huge gap at like 90% of companies. They take a high performer and they're like, okay, you're going to be a manager. Just
Yeah.
figure out a way to get your reps to do what you do. And that's it. Like, they don't teach, like, I get into these conversations with people and it's like, okay, so this rep, it's, obviously they're spending too much time personalizing and it's bringing their volume down. So what are you going to tell them in your next one-on-one? Like, do you have a framework that you use? It's like, no. It's like, okay, you tell them this, and then what are you going to do in your next one-on-one? And they're like, oh, we have no plan. We don't know.
Yeah.
We don't do this. And it's like, what do you do? We just look at dashboards and we got to hit a number. Like,
Yeah, well, I mean, here's where I think having enablement experience will hopefully lend a hand in sales leadership experience. When I was running global SDR enablement programs, which I did at 2 companies, I was very unbiased with the reps, right? Like, I didn't have a team that I was focused on up leveling. I had an entire organization.
yeah,
And so, I really focused on those frameworks, and I really focused on those, identifying frameworks, like how to tell when a rep is struggling before it gets bad, right? Jerry Farr, who is a
yeah, I
phenomenal,
know, Jerry.
you're smiling, so I'm sure you know him. He's great. He
Yeah.
he is so good at diagnosing issues, and he taught me a lot. I actually owned a dashboard that he conceptualized at Redis, and it was basically like a funnel view for how to understand a rep's call effectiveness. You could whittle it down to an individual rep or a team or a region. So
Yeah.
stuff like that, having stuff like that in place, it's like a cheat code for managers, right? Because you can kind of just enter your rep's name before a one-on-one, kind of see what their call effectiveness is, and then
Yeah.
understand, okay, if the issues are between this layer and this layer, here's the coaching moment. If
Yep.
you don't have an enablement team run by Jerry Farr, obviously things are going to be a little bit different, but I still think having that enablement experience will hopefully really help as I
Mhm.
jump back into sales leadership, because I'm very much framework oriented and data driven.
Yeah.
I don't like, anecdotal coaching.
No.
I don't think it's as helpful. So
No. Okay, so you have the player coach experience. It was like the best of times, the worst of times, and then you find your way into enablement work. So what was that transition like?
So enablement was not even on my radar for the first couple years that I was in tech, because I didn't know what it meant. I had never heard the
Yeah,
word. I
same.
had heard training.
Yeah, yeah.
Training was a word. But oh gosh, I think it was after I took a John Barrows course, like
Mhm.
a Sell Better, like, webinar course or something. I was like, man, I really wish I could be the person to help like run these. Like, I feel like this is really fun for me and I want to do this. Um, and when I was working at the second company that I worked at that brought me on as a player coach, you know, I, I could see the writing on the wall that it might not be the best long-term fit for me.
Yeah.
And again, like, we can get to like the whole job hopping stuff, because I've had a hard time beating the job hopper allegations, and it's
Who
tough, right?
cares? Yeah.
And that's more or less my attitude about it. But I also think it's like, I would tell myself, I think at various points, to maybe stick around a little longer. But when
Yeah.
I was at the second company, I was like, I could see the writing on the wall. That's when a connection of mine actually reached out to me and said, hey, like, we have this open role at my company. It's kind of a blend between operations and enablement. And I think it'll give
Hmm.
you a really good footing if you want to do enablement long term.
Oh
And so
yeah.
I took that. So
Yeah. And you were thinking like, hey, they used to stick the new reps to me. I love, the coaching aspect of what I'm doing as a player coach. I
yeah,
get to do that full time.
yeah.
Um, Cool. So you go there, you start an enablement. Is that when you walked right in, was it like, oh yeah, I'm in the right place, this is a good fit? Or was there like some choppy waters at first?
So, yes and no. I think 80% of me was like, yes, this is great. I love this. I want to do this forever. But then 20% of me faced a lot of pushback from reps who
Hmm.
don't always want to hear it from an enablement leader.
Oh
They
yeah,
want to
yeah,
hear it from a peer or a seller, someone who's doing it. And then, of course, everyone on LinkedIn bashes you if you give any advice and you're not actually doing it every single day. Like, it's so,
Yeah.
I know it's so
yeah.
frustrating. I'm like, I don't know. But
Yeah.
so, I faced some pushback for sure. I was this brand new girl, coming in to be a global director of enablement. People were like, who is she? She's barely had experience to match this. But I think what I ended up doing was working really closely with the folks at that company who had been there for years. And they helped me a lot.
Yeah.
And I had great mentorship there internally, and I had great mentorship externally at the time too. So I
Nice.
felt infinitely more, supported, infinitely more, I guess just like guided. And it was a really nice experience. So 80% of me was like all in, this is exactly what I want to be doing. But then
Yeah.
that 20% of me that was facing pushback from the reps also kind of craved directly managing them too. I was like, oh, this is a bummer. Like I want to be
Yeah.
like, I want to be there with you.
Yeah.
But
One of the things I see at a lot of my accounts where enablement is having problems getting traction with, they're always going to have problems getting traction with reps just because for the reasons you stated, but
yeah,
you don't always see top down support from sales leadership at some of these organizations. They're just like, oh, we have an enablement team, that's your job, you figure it out. But the organizations where enablement really is proficient in driving change in the sales, people are listening to them and doing the shit that they're asking of them. It's where the VP of sales or the CRO is like, okay, these enablement people, I handpicked them. They're awesome. Listen, like you have to do what they're telling you to do. It's kind of a condition of employment. It's not like they're just, you have a 1 hour session with them once a month and they're going to throw some tidbits at you type of
yeah,
deal. So
yeah,
there's that. And then there's also the thing that I think people forget about. They just expect like you can tell something to a rep and they're going to get it and they're going to do it right away. But I think of like that thing that used to be in television advertising where it's like consumer has to see your ad 7 times before it clicks with them and they take action. Like it's the same thing with enablement. You have to tell them like multiple times. Like you have the meeting, you
yep,
follow up in Slack, you follow up in email, then you send a nudge like a week or two later. Then in the
yep.
next meeting, you bring it up again, you ask for the issues they had. Like it's this ongoing thing. It's you don't just throw something at them and then on to the next thing.
Totally. There's so much that I learned about adult learning through working in enablement too, like how to make presentations sticky, how to do meaningful knowledge checks, after sessions, a week after sessions, stuff like that. What asynchronous learning actually really means to folks who learn
Yeah.
that way versus in person or, Zoom trainings. And again, like all of that, I think is highly applicable to jumping into this new role, which I'm very excited about, which is fully remote. And there are opportunities to meet folks and to go in person, but it is fully remote for me. So I will be I will be in my Zoom,
Oh yeah.
in my Zoom vibe. But yeah, no, I'm very grateful for the experience that I did have in enablement.
So I know you were in enablement for a while, then you were kind of doing some consulting and
Yeah.
stuff like that, it looked like. So was that mostly enablement focused as well?
So it's funny, I stumbled into consulting. I never really meant to do Carole Sells full time. Carole Sells is my consulting business. I go by Carole for the most part, so that's that.
Oh,
Yeah, well, I should change my name on LinkedIn because it's like it's people
I've
call
been
me
calling you the wrong name this whole time. I feel like a dick.
totally fine. But yeah, so when I was working at Redis, oh, phenomenal company, phenomenal people, incredible leadership. I would recommend working there to anyone.
Would you guys, okay, so I worked with Jerry Farr at Outreach, and I, like everyone, I love Jerry Farr.
Yeah.
Just if you meet him, you love him. But would you guys do the Jerry, like the Jerry Springer chant? We did that with him every time he would speak. Jerry.
No, we should have. We teased him in so many other ways, but we didn't do
No,
that. I wish we had now.
you
Um,
missed it. Next time you work with him, bring up the Jerry chant.
oh yeah, and it really is a next time because I really do want to work with him again in my
Yeah,
career. He is phenomenal.
same.
But Redis, phenomenal. I keep saying that word. Incredible opportunity. I think what happened was I wanted to break into a department that we didn't really have at Redis, right? Like community marketing wasn't really a thing there. And so I had a friend.
Wait. Why'd you want to do that?
Good question. I felt like I would be good at it.
Okay.
That's pretty much the long and the short of it. I was like, I feel like this is something I could be really great at, and it looks exciting.
Would you say you're someone who has a lot of curiosities?
Yes.
Cool. Okay.
100%. And that
I get
is
that.
curiosity kills the cat.
Well,
So
I'm the same way. I have a lot of curiosities, and I give myself permission to follow those curiosities. And if I'm passionate about it, I'll drill in. But one thing, some negative byproducts of that are one, I end up half-assing a lot of things instead of whole-assing just one thing.
yeah.
And two, I just kind of burn hot. Like I'll just be on something, just going, and then it's like I'm done. Like I had a 2-year period where I just ate a 6-inch turkey on wheat Subway sandwich with red wine vinaigrette and oil and spinach, like the exact same sandwich every day with baked Lay's potato chips for 2 years.
Wow.
And now I will not fucking touch Subway again for the rest of my life. It was like, I'm done with Subway. Like, so
That's
I don't know.
so
Yeah, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'm like hearing trends and things, and I'm sure people listening kind of have the same thing. Like they're floating around in their career. Maybe they are job hopping a little bit, which I think who gives a fuck about that? Like, you don't owe anyone any kind of loyalty. Like this is a cash grab. This is business. They're going to ask things of you and try to get the most out of you. So you get the most out of your 9-to-5 life. So if that means changing jobs every 6 months, that's fine. But I'm sure people listening are like kind of picking up on this. So I want to give them permission to like, you can be curious about stuff and follow your curiosities and be successful at it.
For sure. Absolutely. And
All right, I'm back from getting the groceries. That was episode 1 of 2 with Caroline Maloney. I like the part she talked about how, going on acting auditions makes cold calling feel like nothing. So if you want to connect with her, go to LinkedIn. I think her content is great for early career BDRs. If you want to support the podcast, like, subscribe, leave comments below, and you can ask me questions too, and I'll answer them. Tune in next week for the second part of the interview with Caroline Maloney.